I received an urgent message the other day from a client, and when I called them back, they said, I just realized my term life insurance expires this month. Do you have a recommendation for where I should buy a new policy? And my answer surprised her because I said, I honestly wouldn't buy one if I were you. And she was a bit taken aback at first. But here's the thing. She was 65, she's retired, she has 2.3 million in assets, and her kids are grown with their own successful career. So today I want to talk about 7 things that you're often told you need that most people don't. And I hope for many of you, it could save you thousands of dollars in the process. And the third thing I'm going to mention, I think could be a bit controversial, but I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. But first, my name is Kevin Lum. I'm a certified financial planner, and this channel is dedicated to helping a million people retire without worry. Let's start with life insurance, since that's what got me thinking about this video in the first place. When you buy any insurance, the question is always, what's my insurable interest? For most people, life insurance exists to replace income for dependents. That's it. It's not an investment. It's not a legacy tool for most people. It's income replacement. So here's my simple test. If you died tomorrow, would anyone suffer financially? Now, not emotionally. Hopefully, many people are very sad that you have passed, but would anyone suffer financially? If your spouse has their own retirement funds or you have joint retirement funds, if your kids are grown and self sufficient, if your mortgage is paid off, what are you insuring? I had a client that was paying $400 a month for a whole life policy that they didn't really need. It was almost $5,000 a year. His wife had her own pension. He had no debt. His kids were in their 40s. And so we canceled that policy. We took that $5,000 a year and he took a trip to Italy for a few weeks. Now, of course, there are exceptions. Some people need life insurance for things beyond income replacement. If you have a special needs dependent, if you have an estate tax issue, so if you're high net worth and you're going to have a significant estate tax, or in some particular business situations. But for 90% of retirees, what I often see is that people are paying for peace of mind that they don't actually need. They can take that money and they can redirect it and spend it on something that will be more meaningful to the retirement, or they can just invest that money for the future. So first of all, most people entering retirement do not need life insurance. Second of all, variable annuities. Let's talk about the product that makes me more angry than almost any other product, and that's variable annuities. And let's be clear, I'm not one of those advisors who believes that every annuity is bad. I think annuities can serve a purpose in some plans, but variable annuities are often products that are sold, not bought. What they don't tell you at that free steak dinner is that often you're paying fees of up to 3 to 4% a year for that variable annuity. And you still have market risk and you can still lose money in a variable annuity. I reviewed one situation where someone had about a $500,000 balance and they had $67,000 in fees over 7 years. They'd barely broken even. Whereas if they'd put the money into a simple index fund, they would have nearly doubled their money during that same time period. The Wall Street Journal told a tragic story a few years ago about a lottery winner who wanted to start a foundation to help end ovarian cancer. So they took the money, it was $28.3 million that they'd used to start the foundation, and they put it into a variable annuity. 6 years later, that pool of the variable annuity pool had shrunk to $26.3 million. They started with 28, it shrunk to 26, even though the stock market had more than doubled during that same time period. What we see often with variable annuities is that the person selling the product is much better off than the person buying it. Now, again, I am not anti-annuity. There are very good reasons to use them. For example, some people want guaranteed income. If that's you, you might want to look at an immediate or a fixed index annuity that has some sort of guaranteed income, not something that's just going to make a big commission for a salesperson. And there are other smart ways you can use annuities. For example, some people use certain types of annuity products that are basically like a CD, but are offered by an insurance company. Always start with the plan and then build everything else around the plan instead of starting with the product, which is what often happens with annuities. They start with the product and then they build the plan around the product. Start with the plan and then slot in the right tools into your plan. And now this one may be a bit controversial, but number three, and this is not something that often gets sold to you per se, but I don't typically recommend buying a vacation home. They're very tempting, particularly in early retirement. You have freedom and the mountain cabin just looks amazing. You begin imagining, I could spend half my time in one location and the other half in the other location. But what many people discover is that they only end up using this vacation home 3 or 4 weeks out of the year. Meanwhile, property taxes and HOA fees and maintenance and insurance and utilities, and you can kind of keep going on, begin to add up. For example, I had a client, I can't remember where exactly, I think it was in Mammoth or Tahoe. They had a really nice cabin. But when I reviewed the situation, I found that they'd used it 21 times in the previous year and it had cost them $18,000 in fees over the previous year, right? Property tax and maintenance and all the other things that they just had to pay. That was $857 a day that they'd paid for access to the home, in addition to the amount of money that was tied up in the property. Well, you know what $857 a day can buy? It can buy a really nice hotel or a really nice Airbnb where somebody else has to fix the plumbing, right? So you could rent the same home every year. One client that I know does this in Hawaii every February, right? But no maintenance, no stress. And if they get bored, they can always go somewhere else. Now, if you have a family vacation home, I'm not saying sell it. And if you're, a snowbird and you spend half your year one place and the other half of the year another place, that can work for you. But for many retirees, you are better off renting over buying a second home. But I would be interested, does anyone have experience with owning a vacation home? Are you glad you bought it? Do you regret it? Any advice for the rest of us? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Number four, overpriced active mutual funds or ETFs. Now, this is happening less and less, but I still occasionally have people reach out that are paying over 1% a year for an actively managed mutual fund or ETF. Morningstar has some data that shows that over a 15-year period of time, 88% of active fund managers underperform their benchmark, at least in the category that they were looking at. And so if you are paying, a high expense ratio on a mutual fund or on an ETF, you need to reevaluate what purpose does that fund show. Now, I'm not against always paying a high fee. I use a couple of funds on the fixed income side that are cost a bit more than 0.5% a year, but they have a reason and a purpose in the portfolio. But if you are paying a high expense ratio, you want to evaluate the purpose of that fund and the role that it serves in your portfolio. Now, on the other hand, sometimes I think people try to buy the cheapest fund possible, right? They'll buy VTI and they'll put everything in VTI and everything in, Vanguard International Index. Now, with that being said, there are times where cheapest is not best. As a general rule, you want to keep the expense ratio on the funds that you're using as low as possible. Next, for most people, you want to avoid buying an extended warranty. Extended warranties are profit centers for corporations. They typically aren't in your best interest. For example, I was at Best Buy the other day. I bought my daughter a Nintendo controller, and when I bought the $50 controller, they offered me for $20 the ability to be able to extend that warranty. I think I will pass. So for many people, instead of buying the extended warranty, just skip the warranty and boost your emergency fund. Self-insure. If something breaks, you've got cash to buy a new one. Now, full disclosure, I'm a bit of a hypocrite on this one because I tend to buy an extended warranty when I buy a used car. We like to buy used cars, but I'm also afraid of the cost if it ever breaks down. Here's the problem. I've never gotten a penny out of the extended warranty that I purchased on the used cars. Actually, we've been very lucky. These cars we bought in the past 10 years have all run very well. But for whatever reason, I grew up very poor and had many experiences as a kid where our car would be broken down and I'd be stranded on the side of the road. And as an adult, I never want to be in that situation. I want a car that is well taken care of. Is it rational? Probably not. But sometimes when it comes to finances, we make irrational decisions that aren't the best spreadsheet answer, but are driven by something else. And I know exactly what drives me to buy the extended warranty. Is it smart? No. Does it keep me from breaking down on the side of the road? No. But for some reason, That extended warranty helps me have more peace of mind. If that's you, you should buy the extended warranty. But if you're trying to make the smartest financial decision, typically you'll want to pass on the extended warranty. Next, don't buy an investment property without a plan. There's something that happens for a lot of people as you near retirement where you become obsessed with passive income, right? And people talk about, oh, if you buy real estate, you're going to have passive income. That may be one of the most misleading ideas in finance. There is nothing passive about owning real estate, or at least if you are directly purchasing the real estate. Many retirees get excited about buying a rental, right? They've watched HGTV, maybe they went to a seminar and they think they're ready. They buy their first rental or they buy their first duplex or their first small apartment complex. And then reality hits, right? The tenant calls at 2 a.m. or it's vacant for 3 months. And then you have a property manager that's taking a cut. And then you've got the repairs and the taxes and HOAs and all the other things that you have to deal with. One person I was talking to recently told me they thought they were going to clear about $1,000 a month on this rental that they were purchasing. After everything was said and done, they netted $200 a month. Now, $200 a month is better than nothing, but when you take into account the amount of stress it caused them and the amount of time they spent on it, when I asked them, was the $200 worth it? They said the $1,000 a month wouldn't have been worth it. In fact, they would have been better off parking their money in treasuries and they wouldn't have gotten late night calls telling them that the toilet was overflowing. Now, if you've been a landlord for years and you're great at managing properties, great, keep doing it. Real estate can be a wonderful investment. But if you are just starting out, you're getting near retirement and you're thinking, oh, I'd love to have some passive income retirement, I would highly suggest that real estate is not passive income. It's a part-time job. If that's the part-time job you want, and you know real estate backwards and forwards, and you're willing to get those late night calls or whatever it might be, maybe you should consider real estate. But for most people, as you near retirement, you want to begin to lower the stress and the complexity in your life. And purchasing real estate often increases the complexity and increases stress and often makes it harder for you to focus on the things you want to focus on in retirement. If you really want exposure to real estate, you can get exposure through a real estate investment trust, either a private or public REIT, and that will give you real estate exposure, but it's professionally managed. It often is liquid and can be true passive income. Now, will you make less than if you'd done your own deal? Probably, but you will also have a lot more peace of mind. Okay, number 7, don't buy complicated financial products with high fees. If you followed me, you know I believe in simplicity over complexity. Every few years, there's a new can't lose product that makes its rounds, whether it's structured notes or buffered ETFs or private credit or market linked CDs. There's different packaging, but the pitch is always very similar: protect your money and still get growth. But these products often benefit the company selling them much more than it benefits the people buying them. Structured notes sound great, right? There's some upside, there's some downside protection, but then you dig into the fine print and you realize you're giving up transparency and liquidity and some control, and often they're not very tax advantageous. And then there's the fear play, right? Buy gold before the dollar collapses. Now, I'm not against a little gold in your portfolio, but many of the companies that are selling gold are charging higher fees than you need to pay and then charging you storage to keep it in some offsite location in Nevada, which isn't a great deal for you. If you want some gold in your portfolio, great. Buy it in an ETF. And if you want some physical gold to keep under your bed because it helps you sleep better at night, great. Buy some gold bars from Costco. But if you ever hear something along the lines of guaranteed returns or market linked growth or inflation proof instruments, but it just means you want to pause. And if you can't clearly explain how it makes money or how they make money, typically you don't want to invest. What we find over and over again is that when Wall Street sells complexity, often it's good for Wall Street and bad for us. And the more complex it gets and the harder it is to understand, the more likely it is often that we will be on the losing end. Many of the things I've talked about today have in common is that they're sold through fear of dying and leaving nothing, fear of market crashes, fear of missing out, fear of not having enough. But what the most successful retirees know is that the answer is not buying more products or buying more things, it's having a plan. When you know your numbers, when you stress tested your retirement, when you understand what you actually need, these products and these pitches lose some of their power over us. And if you don't have a plan and you want to start building a plan and playing with your numbers, I'm going to give you access to the same software that I use. It's called Right Capital. You can use it completely free for 90 days. I'll also put a link in the comment below. And if you want a team to partner with to help you build a plan and to manage your retirement, I would be honored if you would consider working with me and my team. You can schedule a free strategy session here using this QR code, or I'll also put a link in the show notes. And if you're thinking about retiring and you're wondering how you're doing, here are 5 numbers you need to know before you retire, and you can watch it now.